Shalom, giving honor and praise to the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. Brothers and sisters, this short presentation will address 3 reasons as to why we do not deal with the New Testament. Some may agree, some may disagree. We want to point out that throughout the different translations of even the Old Testament, one sentence that doesn't lack as time went on is, "Thus saith the Lord." The Lord in this case is Yah, the creator of heaven and earth. One thing that has not changed is Genesis chapter 1 starts off by saying, "In the beginning God created." So it shows you that the Most High is the focus of the Torah and what he did. And then later on in the book of Exodus, it lets us know his great deeds in bringing the children of Israel out of bondage, and the laws, statutes, and the judgments and commandments that he gave the Israelites. And then as time went on, the people didn't listen to the Most High. So he sent them prophets. When the prophets were ignored, he sent them into captivity. By the time the said later prophets came along, the book of Daniel says that the oath and the curse that's written in the law of Moses has been poured upon us, the Israelites. By the time you get to the book of Malachi, in the end, it says, "Remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I, the Lord, Yah, commanded him for all Israel." Israel, according to Deuteronomy, was given a fiery law from the Most High. In Jeremiah, one of the prophets in the Old Testament, it says, "Is not his word like a fire, or like a hammer that breaketh the rock in pieces?" So these are certain things we just want to point out in that particular aspect. We repudiate the idea of being called non-messianic. It is an arrogant term to call yourself something and by default call another brother or sister something. The reason why these videos in part are being done is because the situation, regardless of how much unity was purported, thought, presented, the concept of the teaching of Jesus among Israel was still being presented, regardless of the fact that the common denominator was the Torah, regardless of the fact that all Israelites would say to follow Leviticus 11, which doesn't speak about believing in any man, to follow the laws of Leviticus 19, that does not speak about believing in any man. And though the 10 Commandments are recited by many Israelites, still, that being a base for all Israel, there still was that brick, that stone, that Israelites still had, that they just could not leave alone and just have all Israel who would be united under the basis of the Torah. Therefore, these videos are done to present from a said Old Testament base why we do not deal with the New Testament. Let us go to Hebrews chapter 9, verse 15. Hebrews is said to have no known author. Even when you look up Paul in the concordance, he's nowhere even mentioned in Hebrews. So the question might come, who wrote Hebrews? See, the Torah, what we understand, say from Genesis to Deuteronomy, is understood to be said as the laws of Moses. So Moses is the author. Even if Ezra later on in the Old Testament wrote the Torah that we have today, he still inscribed it by the name of Moses. Hebrews in the New Testament doesn't offer you that. But let us go on, if we will. In Hebrews chapter 9, we're going to read in verse 15, and it says this. And for this, he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is of force after men are dead. Otherwise, it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. Whereupon neither the first testament was dedicated without blood. For when Moses had spoken every precept to all the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats with water and scarlet and wool and hyssop, and sprinkled both the book and all the people. So, the death of the testator, in this case, it's talking about the death of Jesus. It says in Hebrews chapter 9, 17, verse 16, for where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is of force after men are dead. And then he goes on to compare the calves and the goats that was killed in the Old Testament concerning death. If this testator in Hebrews 9, verse 16 and 17 is Jesus, that means his death was necessary. So to say that he's resurrected and is alive, what happened to the testament? Because it says in verse 17, for a testament is of force after men are dead. Otherwise, it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. So if this is talking about Jesus in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 16 and 17, that means his death was necessary. And if he's alive, that means the New Testament then is not of any force, if we are reading that. So that's one reason as to why that is. Let us go, if we will, to Luke chapter 1, verse 1. For as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are most surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto us, from which the beginning were our witnesses and ministers of the word. It seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write unto thee in order, most excellent Theophilus, that thou mightest know the certainty of those things wherein thou hast been instructed. There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias, of the courts of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they both were righteous before God, walking in the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless. And they had no child, because that Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years. Here is the question in this regard. The people that we're reading of here are the parents of John. In Luke chapter 1, verse 6, concerning them, it says, and they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless. If Jesus was the way, the truth, and the light, and no man gets to the Father but by him, if Jesus was the Word that became flesh, or the Word became flesh as Jesus, these people are the parents in Luke 1, or the parents of John. John is older than Jesus. So how are they called righteous before God and blameless before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless? Wouldn't they need Jesus in order for that to be? Wouldn't they have needed Jesus in order to have been acceptable before God, according to New Testament understanding? So we see even in the New Testament that people were called righteous and blameless before the birth of Jesus. So whether you say they were of the house of Aaron, of the priest line, or whether you say that they were Israelites, this says that they were both righteous before God. It says, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless. Leviticus 18 in the Bible talks about the man that walks in the law of the Most High. That has nothing to do with solely the house of Aaron or the priests. So we want to point that out for reason and purposes. Let us go lastly in this presentation. Matthew chapter 2, verse 19. And it says this: But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeareth in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. And he arose and took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea, in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in the city of Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called the Nazarene. That is Matthew chapter 2, verse 19 and 23. The question is, in Matthew 2, verse 23, what prophet stated that one will be called the Nazarene? One explanation that was given is in the book of Judges chapter 13 concerning Samson. But Samson was said by the angel to be a prophet, according to this. Samson in Judges was to be a Nazarite, and a razor was not to come upon his head. Samson, as we see later on, judged Israel for X amount of time. So Samson was a Nazarite, and Samson was a judge. Samson was born in the Bible in the land of the tribe of Dan. Nazareth was geographically not where the tribe of Dan lived. It was geographically where the tribe of Zebulun lived. So we ask in Matthew 2, verse 23, and he came and dwelt in the city of Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called the Nazarene. What prophet said that one will be called the Nazarene? Shalom. Giving honor and praise to the Creator of heaven and earth.